Hey guys, this is Mark from Trade Pro Academy. Welcome back to another edition of the Midday Update. Coming at you guys from our headquarters here in Toronto, Ontario. And today's a lovely day of Tuesday, April 30th, our last day of April. And let's get at it here. So first things first, let's take a quick peek at some of the news that came out after the morning update. Georgie mentioned a couple of the figures that came out in the morning on the YouTube, or the morning update that came out at 8:30 and 9. We're going to take a look at what happened after that update. So 9:45 to 10, couple of figures came out. We had Chicago PMI, April Chicago Purchasing Managers Index came in at 52.6 versus 58.5 expected, and that was the lowest reading since January 2017. New orders are rising at a slower pace. We also had the March pending home sales, the month-over-month figures. Those ones came in at 3.8% versus 1.5% expected. And we also had April consumer confidence numbers come in 129.2 versus 126.8. And that is basically all that we had as far as economic releases for today's session. We still have two pretty big names reporting after market close today, and you've got Apple and you've got AMD. So make sure to keep a close eye on the NASDAQ right after the close. If you want to get tuned for a little bit of volatility, make sure to have those charts open. As far as the remainder of the session, nothing really planned that I can see here. And it's kind of the way that we'll be going through for the remainder here. Keep an ear out on any squawks. And as I mentioned, you got Apple and AMD, some of the notable earnings coming out after the market close. So that will give you some opportunity there on NASDAQ around 4 p.m. Eastern. So let's close that up and let's get onto my charts here, where you will see crude oil and SP 500, as well as our quote board. And so what you're seeing on the quote board, let me get my handy dandy pen out. You're seeing crude oil right here. We've traded around 575,000 contracts so far today, and that's just about on pace for average, maybe a little bit more than average. We've seen on average around 5 to 550,000 around this time of day in the last couple of weeks. So we are sitting a little bit above average. Daily change percentage 0.58%. And we are up 0.58% from our previous day close at 63.60 yesterday. So nice run up overnight. However, given back a majority of those gains on today's session. However, from the previous day's close, we are only up 0.57%. So that's what that figure means. On the SPUs, you have got around 765,000 contracts so far today. Daily change percentage minus 0.20. Again, your previous day close was at your 43.75. We ended up hitting new all-time highs yesterday, posting the previous day high of 51.50. Those are your current all-time highs, and we've sold off from those highs last night into the end of the session, and saw a little bit of a spill into the 10:30 a.m. reversal hour here at on today's session. So a little bit more than average we're seeing here on the SPUs. Same with oil. And it's giving you some good opportunity, at least in this part of the session. First part of the morning was a little bit quiet on the SPUs, and the majority of the opportunity was in crude oil, and that's kind of what we've been playing. So now that you guys got that quote board, let's have a quick peek at the pivots for both of these charts here. You will see crude oil, we came into your R2 overnight. That level was your 64.48. Came up into it, couldn't quite break up. You saw a little bit of a poke its head above the R2, came back down, and really on the open, we've kind of slammed back below the R1. R1 is coming in at 64.04, and your pivot is down there at 63.25. You can see overnight here, there's April 30th. And so overnight, really, we'll call it from the 6 o'clock, or rather 4 o'clock there, you saw a little bit of consolidation, didn't quite get down into the pivot, but made an overnight low there around the 63.30s. and pivot comes in at 63.25, so 5 cents above the pivot. Nice little run up there around London Open, and we've since given back all those gains, came back right into that zone, 63.25, and now we've pressed back up into our R1. So R1 should be acting as somewhat of a resistance at this point in time, since we are testing it from the downside up. If that level does hold, you can see us kind of hang about between these two levels, the 63.25s and your 64.04s. If we do get a crack back above that R1, again, your 64.50, right around the R2 will be a magnet, and your overnight high comes in at 64.75. So above R1, could see us pressing up to the previous highs. If R1 holds for the remainder of this session, could see us spilling back down to that pivot, maybe into the S1. As far as the SPUs are concerned, you guys kind of mentioned it yesterday. All-time highs here came right off of the R1 level yesterday, and a little bit of a spill into the close. Came into the S1 here overnight. This was 29.36.33, and bounced off of that level right into that pivot. Pivot came in at 29.43, and we kind of sold off on that level. From there, opened up at just above 29.40. I actually think the opening print was 29.40, and so we opened below the pivot, got back below S1, below S2, kind of held here at around the 29. What was that? We'll call it 29.25-ish zone, and we're back up above S1 and currently above S1, and looking to hold this as support if we are going to continue back up into that pivot and into those previous day highs. So that's what we'll be watching for here. This is really a key level on the S&P 500, and I'll show you why that is on the range chart in just a moment. So really, we are overall in a bullish trend here, but like George mentioned on the YouTube update this morning, stocks do not crash from lows, they crash from highs. And so we just hit a new high yesterday, getting a little bit of a rotation. We are seeing somewhat of a bearish market structure starting to form, but it's not decisive enough to say we flip to bearish. You are seeing what is looking like your first leg of a high, lower low, lower high, lower low. So it really depends on what the SPUs do here. If they press back into that pivot and roll and find some resistance and roll over, then we could start seeing lower lows, lower highs, start looking to sell some rips. However, if we get back up above that pivot zone, that will just be what's it called? That will just be kind of like a divergence for me. A little spill below that level just to take out some of the buy stops below here, or rather the sell stops below here for a continuation higher. So really, really key level here for me today, right between the S1 and the pivot here on the SPUs. Let's jump on to our charts now. Crude oil, here's our chart. So still off of the open from Friday. Friday's trading was right up around there. Nice big spill out. And to start the week, we are seeing a little bit of bullishness. You're seeing off of these lows, we are starting to make higher lows and higher highs, right, guys? So higher lows, higher highs, pretty aggressive. But granted, we did come down into these 63.30s, right into that overnight low. You'll see that this was a previous swing low, and that level has held for the moment. So that is still within a bullish market structure. Looking for a press really back up into that open to those overnight highs around the 64.75s. And the key level for me will really be between the 64.40s and the 64.75s. If we do trade up into here, start to fail, and then roll over here, break below these VWAPs quite aggressively on some large volume, that could be a sign to me that, you know, that might be our first lower high, and we could be looking to shift downwards. When will that get confirmed? Well, that'll get confirmed if we break back below our overnight low, 63.30s. If that does happen, we could see some additional move open up to the downside, could see the seller step on it. However, for the moment, we are maintaining that bullish market structure. So we will be listening to what the market is telling us and playing along that side. So what are your levels for the remainder of the session? Well, you're at a key one right now. 64 is a pretty big level here. The reason why I say that is because we had this big consolidation here on, I believe that was on Friday. No, that was today, before this sell-off. Now we're right back up at that level, and this will be, again, key level here. If we hold this level, find some support, and then break up to these levels, could look to qualify long here. However, if we start to see a failure where it breaks back below these levels on some big increasing volume, rotation up is on low volume. So let's say we get this crack below it, big volume. If we get that rotation higher and we're seeing low volume, that can be a good sign that we're ready to go step on it back to the lows. So we'll be watching for either one of those scenarios. If this thing holds here and then we get that push up, we'll be looking to play the long side. So that's what we're watching for here on crude. As far as the SPUs are concerned, this is a pretty large level for us. As I mentioned earlier, we are still in a bullish market structure, making higher lows and higher highs, right? So this was our last swing low. We've just come in, that is a higher low, and you can kind of connect these lows together. You're kind of seeing a bit of a channel starting to form here, a bit messy, but that's what it is. And so really this level here is a big contention level for today. You've got your open here, you've got your 5-day volume profile point of control at this level, previous day low, a lot of cluster of supply right around here. And so why is this such a big level for me? Well, because this is going to determine whether we switch bearish or whether we remain bullish. And the reason for that is because, if I make my line a little bit bigger, you've got your first sell-off here. These are all-time highs. First sell-off there, rotation higher, and now we've made a rotation lower, right? So what you're seeing is there's your high, there's your lower low, there's your lower high, lower low, right? So right now the trend, the micro trend within the overall macro trend is bearish, right? So what we're seeing here is a potential, another lower high being formed, right? So this level holds. So let me drop back down to a smaller font here. If this level does hold and we start seeing some value building out here, sellers keep this level below the open, below that 5-day point of control. That could ultimately lead to another break of those lows right back into our 29.22 level, and even could go down into that 29.15, 29.14 level. So again, this was going to be a key level for us. Lots of overhead resistance. If it does push back up above here, what I'll be looking for is something similar to this little fractal you're seeing here, little break, rotation, and then continuation. So now that we're here, if we get that breakout, coming into the previous day close, overnight high, rotate back down here, find some support, could look to pick it up for another press back into the previous all-time highs in the 47 and our current all-time highs here in the 51.5. So that's really the game plan for the remainder of the session. Keep a big eye out here on this 29.40s, big level going into the end of today's session. So that's all that I've got as far as our levels. You guys are now familiar with what's going to happen, what's scheduled for the remainder of the evening, our pivot levels, our key levels on crude and S&P 500. And what we will finish this update up with is our TRADEPRO Performance Index, which I'm just going to pull up over here. And there it is. So here is our TRADEPRO Performance Index, and today is the last day of April trading. So you can see we've closed out our April here again on a positive note. 62% of the room was green. Very interesting numbers today. There was actually nobody that was a break even. So we had the whole team coming off the sidelines and getting into the markets, whether it was being up, 62% of the team being up, or 37.93% of the team being down. Overall, good numbers there. And so closed out April with a positive note. 65% of the room was green throughout the month. And those are great numbers to see. And we look to continue that trend into the remainder of the year. We've seen these numbers really through March. Our numbers were 64.55%. January, 70%. Oh, and February, we're at 67%. These guys should be switched. There we go. So you guys can see on average, the room is green throughout the month, and that is exactly what we hope for. It's exactly why we do this. We want to get you guys in the position to join the ranks of the professionals, join the ranks of the 5% that are making money. And that's what we're doing here, as you guys can clearly see through these poll results. So with that being said, that's going to be my sign off for today. If you guys are enjoying these updates, please let us know. We enjoy the comments. We enjoy any of the likes. We enjoy any of the feedback, anything you guys want to see going forward. How can we add value, and how can we add value to you guys and help you guys get in a better position to become professional traders as well. So Mark again from TRADEPRO Academy headquarters signing off on this lovely Tuesday, April 30th, 2019. We will see you next month, tomorrow, May 1st. Until then, guys, good luck, good trading. We'll see you then. Have a good one. And